Alisha, could you hear me? Could you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. In few minutes, we are going to start with lecture. Okay. So today we are going to discuss with the diseases of endocardium. Our last lecture was on heart failure, that is left-sided failure and right-sided failure, and what is congestive cardiac failure. We have discussed about the causes, the pathogenesis of heart failure, then about what is difference between left and right heart failure. Today we are going to discuss the next topic, that is disease of endocardia. Could you able to see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll start with the lecture. So disease of endocardium. In the disease of endocardium, there are three sections: rheumatic heart disease, then bacterial endocarditis, and subacute bacterial endocarditis. So today we are going to discuss about rheumatic heart disease and bacterial endocarditis. These two topics we are going to discuss today. Tomorrow we will go for subacute bacterial endocarditis, and as well as we will revise again these three topics tomorrow again. Okay. So this rheumatic heart disease, it is a disease of children and young adults. It is a disease of children and young adults in which inflammation affects the connective tissues at many sites, of which the heart is most important organ. Okay, so this disease will affect various other connective tissues like joints, muscles. Okay, and in all this, heart is the effect on heart is very important. Still students are coming. Okay. So etiology of this rheumatic heart disease, we also call it as rheumatic fever. We also call it as rheumatic fever, rheumatic endocarditis, rheumatic fever or rheumatic endocarditis. Now, what is the etiology? It is strongly associated with streptococcal diseases. That is, origin is streptococcal of group A. That is Streptococcus hemolyticus. And there is always history of sore throat, the streptococcal sore throat. So the streptococcus is important because it shares the antigen with human tissues, particularly heart muscles and cardiac walls. Niranjan, mute yourself. Please
Yes,
mute
ma'am.
yourself. So the exciting cause is some bacterial infection, that is mainly streptococci group A. That is streptococcal hemolyticus is the origin of this particular organism. When this bacteria enters as an antigen in the human tissues, in the human system, there will be affections, particularly heart muscles and cardiac wall get affected. The age, the characteristic age about this disease is commonly within 5 to 15 years of age. Peak incidence is between 7 to 8 years of age. The mainly females, they are more prone to get this infection than males. And this disease will be rare before age of 5 and after 30. Now, the lesions. There are two types of lesions of this disease, proliferative lesions and exudative lesions. Please mute yourself. Proliferative lesions and exudative lesions. Now, firstly, proliferative lesions. These lesions occurs in the heart with formation of Aschoff's body. They are commonly found in myocardium. Now, what is the Aschoff's body? Now, this Aschoff's body, they get formed as a degenerative process of the connective tissue. Now, all of you know about what is degeneration. It is just a structural and functional damage of the tissue. Okay, the functions of the tissue, they get disturbed for a time being, and which can be recovered back. The cure will take place in the case of degeneration. So this is a degenerative process of connective tissue, where there is formation of proliferating nodules with histocytes. And these proliferating nodules which get formed in the myocardium, these nodules, they are called as Aschoff's body. You can see here there is lymphatic infiltration between muscle fibers. These are muscle fibers. There is infiltration of the lymphocytes in this. The Aschoff's body, this is whole thing we call it as Aschoff's body. Okay, this whole circular thing which get developed within the muscles is called as Aschoff's body. Centrally, it is granular or with hyaline debris with large mononuclear cells and some with multiple nuclei. You can see the multiple nuclei in this. And there is perivascular cellular infiltration. Okay, so these are the Aschoff's body. Now, how the Aschoff's body looks? There is a centrally necrotic area with fibrinoid degeneration. Aschoff cells, they are large elongated giant cells. Aschoff cells, they are the large elongated giant cells containing multiple vesicular nuclei and granular cytoplasm. There is infiltration of monocytes, lymphocytes and plasma cells at periphery to this vesicular nuclei. It is nothing but a giant cell which is elongated in shape, which contains multiple vesicular nuclei and granular cytoplasm. There is infiltration of the inflammatory cells, that is monocytes, lymphocytes and plasma cells at periphery of the giant cell. There is proliferation of fibroblast with fibrosis, and the lesions, they appears as a subcutaneous nodules, especially on the bony prominences, that is on the skin. This is about the skin lesions. And in the heart, this Aschoff's body, they get formed in the myocardial muscle fibers. And the outward lesions in the body, they appear on the bony prominences as a subcutaneous nodules. So these are the proliferative lesions. Proliferative lesions, they are related with formation of Aschoff's body in the myocardium. Okay, as a antigen antibody reaction, when the streptococcus enters in your system, there is, due to this antigen antibody reaction, there is formation of Ashop's body. This is formed as a degenerative process in the connective tissue, and this Ashop's bodies, they are nothing but the giant cells which contains multiple vesicular nuclei with granular cytoplasm, and this giant cells, they get surrounded by the inflammatory cells, and furthermore there is entry of the fibroblast, and there is formation of fibrin meshwork around this giant cells. Now the second type of lesion is exudative lesions, commonly occurs in the joints. Oftenly large joints affects first and then small joints. The joint become hot, tender and swollen. The joint becomes swollen, hot and tender. So large joints, they are knee joints, then elbow joint, ankle joint. The joints, they get affected first and then small joints like interphalangeal joints. The joint fluid is cloudy. There is collection of fluid in the joints which is cloudy. Although it is cloudy, it is sterile in nature. The similar lesions may occur in the pericardium, giving rise to rheumatic pericarditis with effusion. About pericarditis we are going to study later on. Okay, so the similar lesions appears in the case of rheumatic, in the pericardial lesions. As a pericardial lesions, we call it as rheumatic pericarditis with effusion, and sometimes it may be associated with pleural effusion. Now about endocardial lesions. In this, that is in the rheumatic fever or rheumatic endocarditis, the endocardium of mitral wall is involved in the almost all the cases. The percentage of involvement of mitral wall is more than aortic wall and then tricuspid wall. Aortic wall 50%, tricuspid wall 33%. In this, there is formation of rheumatic nodules in the valvular endocardium. Now, what is valvular endocardium? Just I will show you. I will show you just one of the figure of this. Yes. So this is the wall, that is mitral wall, and there is formation of this elongated section, elongated part, we call it as rheumatic vegetations. Okay, so this rheumatic vegetations, they get formed in this endocardial lesions. The endocardium is surrounded, it is on the mitral wall, that is valvular endocardium. There is formation of rheumatic nodule, and then this nodules, they get transferred into vegetations. Okay, now what are the nodules? They are the multiple, tiny, warty, firm, braid-like nodules arranged in row. They get arranged in row along the margin of the wall. The valvular appendix is there. So on this valvular appendix, there is formation of or appearance of multiple tiny, warty, firm, braid-like nodules, and they get arranged in the row-like manner, consisting platelet, thrombi, and fibrin. They contains platelet, thrombi, and fibrin. This type of inflammation spreads throughout the whole wall, that is valvular substance, and histologically characterized by cellular infiltration and edema. So whenever there is antigen antibody reaction occurs in the body with appearance of this streptococcus, that is streptococcus hemolyticus, in that case, there is formation of the nodules on the valvular appendix. Okay, so whenever the streptococcus enters in your system, it affects, the main affection is heart and the muscles of the heart and wall. The muscular, in the muscles there is formation of Ashop's nodules, Ashop's bodies, and on the wall there is formation of rheumatic nodules. Okay, so there is it is associated with cellular infiltration and edema. These lesions, they are firm and adherent and known as rheumatic vegetation. Just I had shown you a figure that is a long projected thing, what we call it as vegetation. When the nodule get enlarges, we call them as vegetation. What is vegetation? Finger-like projections. Okay, these finger-like projections get developed on the wall, and they also appears on the chordae tendineae. And because of the formation of these rheumatic vegetations, the chordae tendineae, they become fragile, they become delicate, so they get detached from the walls sometimes, and there is the mechanical defects occurs in the heart, that is on the mitral wall. Okay, so incompetence of the mitral wall get develops because of this breakage of the chordae tendineae, because of formation of rheumatic vegetations. Understood? So these lesions, they are firm, they are adherent, known as rheumatic vegetations. And all the inflammatory process that it changes, consisting aggregation of macrophage. So this is associated formation of rheumatic vegetations. They are associated with this all inflammatory process. That is aggregation of macrophages, plasma cells, leukocytes associated with exudate and edema. Then this gets surrounded by fibroblasts and capillaries. They invades the vegetations, forming granulation tissue. And ultimately, the wall becomes thick and calcified. Okay, so first of all, there is formation of tiny rheumatic nodules which enlarges in size because of this inflammatory process, and they get transferred into vegetations. And when these vegetations get surrounded with fibroblasts and capillaries, there is formation of granulation tissue, which ultimately, because of this formation of granulation tissue, this wall become thick and calcified. Now, what are the changes? Anatomical changes occurs due to formation of the vegetations. What happens? The wall orifice become narrowed because of this inflammation. The wall orifice become narrowed, producing stenosis. What is stenosis? Again, narrowing and incompetence. I just told you that because of this breakage of chordae tendineae or shortening of chordae tendineae, this will gives rise to incompetence. That is, one leaflet will not going to work properly, so we call it as incompetence. And with as it is a degenerative process, with proper treatment, there is the resolution, that is the cure occurs, which is complete. The ball become thickened due to inflammation. The ball become thickened, rigid, and mitral opening becomes permanently narrowed, forming funnel-shaped orifice. So these are the three type of anatomical changes occurs with this rheumatic fever. The first is narrowing of valvular orifice. Second, stenosis and incompetence due to shortening of chordae tendineae. Thirdly, the wall become thickened, rigid, and the mitral opening become permanently narrowed, which gives rise to funnel-shaped orifice. Mute yourself, Shivani. 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 Mute yourself. Mute yourself. The next is myocardial lesions. That is formation of Aschoff's nodules. Just we discussed, that is for because in myocardial lesions there is formation of Aschoff's nodules. Then the pericardial lesions. The pericardial lesions, there is rheumatic pericarditis with or without formation of Aschoff's body or nodules with inflammatory changes. Then there are extracardiac lesions, that is the lesions in joints. There is serious effusion of large joints may develop. Just we discussed that this effusion, it is cloudy in nature, but it is sterile. It is sterile in nature, although it looks cloudy. We could not find out any organism from this fluid. So we call it a sterile fluid. Second, pleurisy. Second extracardiac lesion is pleurisy with effusion may develop, but there is no organism can be detected. Again, in the pleural fluid, we could not get any organism as it is sterile. Third affection, third extracardiac lesion is on nervous system. In rheumatic affections, if there is nervous system get involved, it is called as Sydenham scoria due to diffuse meningoencephalitis, inflammation of meningeal membranes. There is encephalitis. Okay. Then next is the clinical and pathological symptoms of rheumatic fever or rheumatic endocarditis. First of all, there is mitral systolic murmur. It is caused due to mitral regurgitation. Then second is pre-systolic murmur due to mitral stenosis. Thirdly, pericardial friction rub due to pericardial effusion. Fourth one is in chronic diseases, there is malaise filling with muscular joint pains. Then repeated attacks of sore throat may be present in chronic cases of rheumatic fever. Fifth one is auricular fibrillations, and it is because it is a sign of myocardial failure. So these are the clinical pathological symptoms. First of all, mitral systolic murmur, then pre-systolic murmur, pericardial friction rub due to this pericardial effusion. Fourth one is malaise feeling in case of chronic rheumatic affections, and also repeated attacks of sore throat and auricular fibrillations. Now, lab diagnosis of rheumatic fever. What is the lab diagnosis? Now, first, we have to perform a throat culture. We have to take throat swab, okay, for detection of group A streptococci. As the origin of this disease is streptococcal infection, we can get this streptococci from the throat swab. So, throat culture, then serological test ELISA, ESR, it is increased, it is always raised as this disease is very long-term affections. It gives rise to long-term affections, and it is tissue destruction is more in this case. ESR is always more. Then there is leukocytosis, anemia, destruction of the cells because of this valvular problems. There is destruction of RBCs, and which may give rise to anemia. Then increased SGOT levels and prolonged PR interval we could get on the ECG. So this is a lab diagnosis of rheumatic endocarditis. Okay. So we talked just about rheumatic endocarditis or rheumatic fever, about its origin, about the causes, etiology, about the type of lesions. That is, there are two type of lesions, exudative and proliferative lesions. Then we talked about the extracardiac lesions, then myocardial, pericardial lesions, central nervous involvement. Then we talked about the clinical pathological symptoms of this disease and lab diagnosis. Now we will go towards again a short topic, that is bacterial endocarditis. This is associated with bacterial infection of endocardium with inflammation of valvular endocardium. The similar involvement, that is valvular endocardium here also in case of bacterial endocarditis. Now in bacterial endocarditis, today we are going to discuss about acute bacterial endocarditis. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about subacute bacterial endocarditis. Okay. So acute bacterial endocarditis, it is also called as infective endocarditis. It is also called as ulcerative endocarditis as destruction is more, and malignant endocarditis. And it has very rapid course, that is less than 6 weeks. As we call it as acute bacterial endocarditis, it has a very rapid course, less than 6 weeks. Etiology. It is always secondary to septicemia, resulting as a complication of some primary infections, that is from boils, carbuncles, osteomyelitis, any lung infection, and infection of prostate or infection of uterus. So here it is not given a marked any bacteria. Okay, it may be a streptococci, it may be a staphylococci, mainly staphylococci, that is as the infections they can spread from boils, the carbuncles, osteomyelitis. So the moreover here, the other bacteria are involved, and any lung infection, it may be pneumococcal, it may be streptococcal, or it may be fungal, any etiological organisms. Okay, so there is no specific organism like in rheumatic endocarditis, in the acute rheumatic, as comparing with the acute rheumatic acute bacterial endocarditis. Lesions. that is mitral and aortic wall commonly affects, except in the gonococcal infection, which is often involved, there is involvement of tricuspid wall. The lesions are usually ulcerative and causes destruction of valvular cusps, making the wall fragile, that is delicate. It can get detached or it can get destruct easily. So the lesions, because of the lesions, they are ulcerative and causing destruction. There is formation of large vegetations on the walls and chordate. The cusps of wall may get perforated and the chordate may get destroyed. So this acute bacterial endocarditis, it is a very much destructive lesions as comparing with this rheumatic fever. Here destruction is more, ulceration because of ulcer formation, the wall cusps become fragile, they can detach easily, chordate they get destroyed easily, wall cusps get perforated easily. So it is here. It is a diagram of bacterial endocarditis. This black arrow shows the vegetations on the wall in the case of bacterial endocarditis. So this is a figure of bacterial endocarditis. The next figure, it is the vegetations of endocarditis. These are the vegetations get formed on the valvular appendix. This is a wall. Okay, this is a wall, that is appendix of wall. In this, on this, the vegetations they get formed with formation of degenerative changes, and somewhere here in case of bacterial endocarditis, we are going to see the necrotic debris, okay, bacterial colonies, and involvement of neutrophils, that is polymorphonuclear leukocytes. So this is the vegetations they get formed on the in case of bacterial endocarditis. Macroscopically, these vegetations are with outer layer of fibrinous material beneath of which there are bacteria. Okay, so outer layer is of fibrinous material and beneath of this fibrinous material there are bacteria. Then pathogenesis, there is virulent pyogenic bacteria, example Staphylococcus aureus, present in local suppurative lesions, enters into the bloodstream. As this acute bacterial endocarditis spread from some primary lesion like boil, carbuncles, like osteomyelitis or any lung infection, this Staphylococcus aureus present in the bloodstream. From that lesion, it enters in the bloodstream. Many of them get destroyed by the body's defense mechanism, that is by the phagocytosis, this get destroyed, but some get adhered to the platelets and are disposed on the rough surface of the deceased wall. So this organism, that is Staphylococci, they get adhered to the platelets and they get disposed to the defected wall. There is bacterial proliferation. They get mixed with the fibrin, platelets and leukocytes in varying form and formation of large vegetations. These vegetations, they are large and crumbling. A loose mixture of organisms and fibrin mainly with the cellular debris. The local effects are rapid destruction of cusps, that is chordate and chordate tendinae, and spread of suppuration to adjacent heart muscles, which gives rise to heart failure. Then embolic effects, suppurative lesions form is the important organs like brain and kidney. The suppurative lesions get formed by this emboli. Toxic effects, severe pyrexia, that is leukocytosis, which is having very rapid course leading to death. So tomorrow we are going to discuss about subacute bacterial endocarditis. Today, please read about this. Then tomorrow we are going to revise this too, and we will go towards subacute bacterial endocarditis.